This is Bob Oliphant from the Westford Historical Society and Museum, bringing you episode 50 of season 4 of the Westford Wardsman podcast. The Westford Wardsman newspaper was part of Turner's Public Spirit, a weekly newspaper in Ayer a century ago. In this episode, we'll be reading the Wardsman for the week ending Saturday, December 16th, 1911, and I'll elaborate on what was happening in Westford that week. The week starts with the Westford Center section. The Christmas tree exercises of the Unitarian Church will take place on Saturday evening, December 23rd, in the vestry. All are cordially invited. There will be a collection taken at the Sunday morning service for the same. This week's message from the SS Cleveland on the Around the World trip, of which Mrs. Elizabeth Whitney and Mr. and Mrs. Walter P. Wright are members, are from Calcutta and from Rangoon in Burma. The party enjoyed their turkey dinner on board Thanksgiving Day, all well and the trip proving delightful. Some of the pupils of the academy, under the direction of their teachers, are rehearsing for a dramatic entertainment to be given in the town hall soon after the holidays. Thoughtful people are reminded that the Red Cross stamps for the Christmas trade are on sale at the post office. The revenue from the sale of these stamps goes to help fight the scourge of tuberculosis. Interested friends are reminded of the baseball games at the Academy on Saturday afternoon. That should be basketball games at the Academy on Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock under the direction of Dexter Cogshell. There will be no admission charge. Mrs. Abile Abbott is confined to her home, suffering with an abscess of the throat. A charming set of views of Ireland is on exhibition at the library, loaned by the Library Art Club. One of the appreciated phases of progress connected with the new electric lights is the turning on of the street lights at 5:30 these dark mornings, making it cheerful to look out upon and for those who may be obliged to be abroad early. Edson G. Boynton has recently purchased a new Buick automobile. At this writing, the report from the sick ones, is that Mrs. John B. Fletcher is resting comfortably and sitting up a little. Mrs. Mary E. Fletcher's many friends are sorry to know of another serious ill turn with attendant suffering. A trained nurse is in attendance. Mrs. Rose E. Green, who was suffering seriously with pneumonia, had a fairly comfortable day, which is good news. Reverend Benjamin H. Bailey's many Westford friends are glad to hear that he has rallied from his recent illness and sitting up a little each day. The next section is the Westford Grange section. At the meeting of the Grange last week, Thursday evening, the annual election of overseers took place as follows: William R. Taylor, Master; John P. Wright, Overseer; Mrs. Clara Grieg, Lecturer; David Grieg, Steward; Pearlie Wright, Assistant Steward; Mrs. Lillian Lumbert, Chaplain; Benjamin Prescott, Gatekeeper; Lorenzo Wheeler, Treasurer; Mrs. Frank Wright, Secretary; Mrs. J. E. Knight and Fred A. Blodgett, Executive Committee; Miss Sadie McMaster, Series; Rachel Wall, Pomona; Mrs. Daisy Colburn, Flora; Mrs. Ida M. Gould, Lady Assistant Steward, I think it is. It's LAS. These officers will be duly installed the first meeting in January by Past Master W. M. Wright, who does this work so ably. He will be assisted by Mrs. Henry Reed, formerly at the head of the ladies' degree staff. Mr. and Mrs. Frank C. Wright, Mrs. Willard Fletcher, and Mrs. Clara Grieg, lecturer-elect, have been attending the sessions of the State Grange at Worcester this week. Alonzo Sutherland represents the Westford Grange in the official staff of the North Middlesex Pomona, acting as its steward. The next section is called Reception. Mr. and Mrs. William E. Wright, who were recently married, held a reception for their friends at their pretty new home on Hildreth Street last Saturday. The hours were from 4 to 8, and during that time many came to bring their greetings and best wishes to the popular couple. Mr. and Mrs. Wright were assisted in receiving by Mr. and Mrs. Charles H. Wright, the bridegroom's parents, and Mrs. Eliza H. Carter, mother of the bride. Refreshments of ice cream and cake and fruit punch were served to the guests, with Miss Edith A. Wright, sister of the groom, presiding in the dining room. Mrs. Adrith Carter, sister of the bride, received all who came to the entrance door. An inspection of the pretty wedding gifts was one of the enjoyable features of the occasion. All who came registered their names in a guest book for the purpose. Mr. and Mrs. Wright have the sincere good wishes of their many friends for happiness and prosperity in their new life. The next paragraph is titled Party. Mrs. J. Herbert Fletcher entertained a party at Whist on Wednesday afternoon. The ultimate object was to aid the treasury of the First Parish Church, but the gathering of congenial friends was one of delightful sociability. There were 8 tables for progressive whist. Ice cream and cake were served after the game. Among those present were Reverend Mr. Weeks, the new pastor, with Mrs. Weeks, and they proved themselves very pleasant people to meet. As always, when Mrs. Fletcher entertains, she proved herself the clever hostess, and Wednesday's gathering will be enrolled as one of the pleasant affairs of the season. Mrs. Fletcher was ably assisted in entertaining by Miss Eva E. Fletcher. Next, we have the Tadmonk section. The Tadmonk was the women's club in Westford. The gathering of the Tadmonk Club on Tuesday at Library Hall, owing to many good reasons, was not so largely attended as sometimes. This was to be regretted as the program was concerned, for it was one of genuine literary merit. Reverend David Wallace was the chairman of the afternoon, with, quote, Sam Walter Foss, poet, philosopher, and preacher, end quote, as his subject. Mr. Wallace sketched the life and development of this big-hearted, large-minded, and courageous man in the 3 different phases with sympathetic insight, conveying what Mr. Foss's message to the world really was through a wise selection from his poems. William Wallace Fenn, 1862 to 1932, of Boston, graduated from Harvard in 1884 and from the Harvard Divinity School in 1887. He served as Bussey Professor of Theology at Harvard from 1901 to 1932, when he died, and as Dean of the Faculty of Divinity from 1906 to 1922. Mrs. Pearlie E. Wright, who has a special gift in this direction, recited with excellent effect Jack Dawson's Pilgrimage and The Big Four. Those are the titles of poems, I guess. Among those that Mr. Wallace had selected were The Men Who Missed the Train, Spring House Cleaning, The Man by the Side of the Road, and The Trumpets Are Calling to Me, this last being written with sublime courage in the face of mortal illness. A fine picture of Mr. Foss graced the speaker's table. The name of Mrs. Goldsmith Conant of South Westford has been proposed and accepted into membership into the club. The next meeting on Tuesday afternoon, December 19th, will be a continuation of the season's special study and will be, quote, Northern Countries of South America, end quote. Miss Clara A. Smith, chairman. Next, we have the About Town section. Mrs. William E. Green is ill with pneumonia at her home on the Providence Road, but appears to be past the extreme danger point. Dr. Cyril Blaney is faithfully administering the case. The Brookside Mills are running on fuller time to the extent of using steam. For some time, water alone answered all the demands of speed. The usual devices at the Unitarian Church next Sunday the usual services at the Unitarian Church next Sunday, conducted by Reverend Lyman Weeks, with an evening service at 5 o'clock. A service of song will precede the address of Mr. Weeks. This is the beginning of a series of Sunday evening meetings. Under this new Unitarian Methodist viewpoint, the congregation has trebled. He certainly has the inspiration of courage and eloquent delivery. I believe Mr. Weeks was ordained as a Methodist minister, but is now serving in a Unitarian church in Westford Center. The large tract of woodland known as the Fletcher and Haywood lot near Westford Station has been sold to Oscar Spaulding. This lot is heavily timbered and well located, being bounded southerly by the Stony Brook Railroad and northerly by Burgess Pond. Reverend Mr. Fenn, Dean at Harvard Divinity School, and Mrs. Fenn were recent visitors at the home of John McMaster. The McMaster home was a favorable resort of Mr. Fenn in his younger days, and where his aged aunt, Mrs. Clow, now resides. Charles Walker, the pioneer proprietor at present of the old Walker homestead, spent Thanksgiving with his sister, Mrs. Clara Littlefield, at Fitchburg. The weather continues spring-like and planting-like. The wild geese are getting uneasy to do something spring-like and were seen last week, Wednesday, flying northward. The first Farmers' Institute of the season was held at Dracut on Wednesday. The attendance was not very large, owing to the spring-like weather. The next section is the Graniteville section. The members of the A.R. Choate Hose Company held a very successful banquet and stag party at Camp Comfort near Flushing Pond last Saturday evening. The full roster of the company was present, and after an elaborate spread, a musical and literary entertainment was given. But owing to the becoming modesty of several of the participants, the full program is withheld for the time being. Suffice to say that a very good time was enjoyed by all, and the different stunts were liberally applauded. The next social function that the firemen will give will take the form of a ladies' night, and this event is scheduled to take place the latter part of January. The Ladies' Aid Society of the M.E. Church met with Mrs. Lucy A. Blood on Thursday afternoon. She lived on Broadway, not far from the church. Mrs. John Downing, with her little daughter Zelia, left here Monday for Shelburne Falls, where she will join her husband, Mr. Downing, who has a lucrative position as superintendent of a construction company in that place and has a furnished house all in readiness for his family. Mrs. Downing was accompanied by her sister, Miss Lillian Moran, who will spend a few days in the new home. The next section is entitled Death. Mrs. Abby Burke, wife of Dennis Burke and an old and highly respected resident, died at her home in North Westford on Saturday morning, December 9th, after a brief illness, aged 67 years. The deceased was well and favorably known, and besides her husband, she leaves 5 daughters, Mrs. George Morris of North Chelmsford, Mrs. Mary McDermott and Miss Julia Burke, Mrs. Daniel Coughlin of Lowell, Mrs. Catherine Burke of Westford, and one son, George H. Burke of Westford. Mrs. Burke, with her husband, who survives her, came to Westford when but a young bride and settled at once upon a farm. And both being young and robust, the place was made to pay, and since then they have prospered and reared a family that has been a credit to them, the Burke family being well known in this vicinity. Though of a quiet disposition, Mrs. Burke has made many friends, and she possessed that pleasing faculty of holding them. She always had a good word and a pleasant smile for everyone, for hers was a beautiful character, and one felt better for having known her. When in conversation with friends some person's name would be brought, she would never pass an opinion, but would simply say, "We all have our faults, and everything will come out right in the end." Her loving presence in that family circle will be sadly missed, and those that are near and dear to her will wait in vain for that kind advice and that motherly smile that will be seen no more. The sympathy of the Graniteville people is extended to the bereaved family in their sad affliction. Mrs. Burke was a devout member of St. Catherine's Church, where the funeral took place Monday morning at 10 o'clock, when a high mass of requiem was celebrated by Reverend Michael E. Doherty. The services were largely attended, and aside from the many in the immediate vicinity, many were present from Lowell, Lawrence, Ayer, Haverhill, Chelmsford, Westford, and Littleton. Burial was in St. Catherine's Cemetery, Lowell. but I think she was actually buried in St. Patrick's, not St. Catherine's. Ford's Village is the next section. Services at St. Andrew's Mission will be held on Sunday evening at 7:30 o'clock. Advent services were held at St. Andrew's Mission on Wednesday evening. Reverend A.L. Bumpus will preach at these services on next Wednesday evening at 7:30 o'clock. Mr. and Mrs. John Carmichael were the guests on Saturday and Sunday of Mr. and Mrs. Alva Bucknell of Somerville. Alva's wife was Anne Bignell. She was the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. John Carmichael. Randolph Reed of Leominster and Mr. Reed of Fitchburg visited Lucretia Reed recently. The many friends of Fred Reed of Graniteville will be interested to hear of his marriage in Worcester to Miss Edith Normington, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Wilfred Normington, formerly of this village, at their home in Worcester on Thursday, December 14th. Only the families of the happy couple attended the ceremony. After their wedding journey, Mr. and Mrs. Reed will reside in the Highlands, Lowell, where Mr. Reed has purchased a home. Francis Lowther and George Sanborn were present at the lecture of Dr. Wilfred T. Grenfell of Colonial Hall, Lowell, on Tuesday evening. Sir Wilfred Thomason Grenfell, Grenfell, was born in 1865 and died in 1940. He was born in England, but was a medical missionary to the fishermen and their families of Newfoundland and Labrador. He frequently gave lectures in New England to raise money for his mission. Through the courtesy of Reverend Endicott Peabody, the choir of St. Andrew's Mission attended the concert held in Page Hall, Ayer, by the Hayden Concert Company on Tuesday evening, given under the auspices of the Middlesex Country Club. On Tuesday evening, December 15th, the annual Christmas tree exercises will be held in Recreation Hall by St. Andrew's Mission. Santa Claus will make his usual visit and expects to be laden with a large assortment of presents for all the faithful members of the Sunday School. The children are preparing an excellent program to welcome him this year. The next section is called Concert. Abbott Hall was the scene on Friday evening of last week of one of the most successful concerts and dances given within its doors for a long time. The concert was given under the auspices of Loyal Self-Help, IOOF, that's the International Order of Odd Fellows, and was generally enjoyed by all present. The numbers were very well rendered and deserved much applause. Some of Graniteville's well-known talent and the Unique Mandolin Club, Unique is spelled U-N-E-E-K, Mandolin Club, assisted the local talent in making the entertainment a success. After the concert, William Burnett, treasurer of the lodge, made a few remarks and thanked each and all most sincerely for helping make the concert the success it was. Dancing was then enjoyed until a late hour to the music of Arthur Blodgett violin and Miss Marion Blodgett piano. Fred Davis was chairman of the entertainment committee and was ably assisted by other members. The proceeds of the affair will be turned into the treasury for the benefit of the lodge. That's the news in Westford for the week ending December 16th, 1911. Thank you for listening, and thanks to Ryan Cousins of WestfordCAT for providing technical support. You can find transcriptions and podcasts from the Wardsman at our website at museum.westford.org or visit the Historical Society's Facebook page for more Westford news from days gone by. This is Bob Oliphant, and I hope you will join us for next week's Westford Wardsman podcast. Thank you.